for inviting me to give this presentation. It's been an interest of mine for several years. I've researched it, done some research on it over several years, loved it, and it's always interesting finding new stuff because in this field of what's flying around and all that, there's a whole lot of just new discoveries all the time. So I want this to be a fun time. I want it to be interesting. I want it to be exciting. You guys are probably going to have lots of questions. There will be, like you said, a question and answer time afterwards, so feel free to jot some down. I don't want to be stuck behind here, but can you guys hear me without the microphone? All right, sweet. And then I've got this deal for the YouTube, and we will get going. Okay, so first of all, aliens it's a big topic, but there's a lot of different things. So there's no way we're going to definitively cover it today, but I'm just going to share some thought processes, some hopefully help you guys make some connections. Statistically, 10% of you guys will have believed that you've seen an alien spacecraft in your life at some point, okay? And that's the statistic based on American demographics. So we're gonna, this is something that either you are maybe wondering about on a very personal level, or maybe your friends are, and we'll get into that a little bit in detail. But I want to kick it off. We're going aliens, UFOs in the Bible. How does it relate to our faith? How does it relate to existential questions that we have? And I think it relates in some big ways. So I'm going to start off with the story of Ezekiel in the Bible. So in the book of Ezekiel, there's this crazy encounter that the prophet has, and this takes place, he records the specific year when it happens. It's just a few years before Jerusalem gets taken over by the Babylonians, and he's very specific in what he writes about his encounter. And we're going to start off with this because a lot of people have the theory that this could have been a UFO encounter, or specifically an extraterrestrial encounter, okay? So let's look at a little bit what he says. So he starts out, in the 13th year, trying to read off of the back there, in the 13th year, in the 4th month, on the 5th day, while I was among the captives by the Kabar River, the heavens were opened and I saw visions of God, right? That's how he starts out. And then he goes on to talk about these crazy intersecting wheels and this crystalline expanse, this brilliant light. And then the centerpiece of it all is he sees God. And it's absolutely overwhelming for Ezekiel. It's the craziest thing he's ever seen in his life. And that evokes a lot of the thoughts and images, even the geometric shapes. Oh my gosh, this could be, this could be a lot of different things, but this is one artist's interpretation of it, right? So this is a lot of things that humans are unfamiliar with. We've got what we know about the world, and this is way outside of it, okay? So Ezekiel has this vision, right? And then here's another depiction of it, okay? And this is, again, we don't exactly know what it looks like, but all we have is oh boy, I'm having fun here all we have is that. But some people have thought, okay, this might fit the whole idea of aliens, right? And so this is one artist's depiction. In fact, this is part of a larger theory that was popularized by a guy named Eric von Däniken, and he thought that all these biblical, ancient encounters, these supernatural encounters, were really encounters with alien extraterrestrials, right? And so this is a real question. Does this, is Ezekiel talking about basically the same thing as alien encounters? Is this an extraterrestrial visitation? Are modern encounters extraterrestrial? We have all these questions, right? And so I want to start out with kind of a picture that we're going to follow through the whole presentation, all right? And humans are trying to explain life, right? We're trying to explain life, and we see things around us, but we want to know what the purpose is, what reality is. How do we explain what we see around us? And so, like some people have done in this, with Ezekiel's account, we're asking, is it extraterrestrial in origin? How do we explain it, okay? And what we're going to do in this presentation today is I'm going to try to address four different areas, and some of these are ancient and some of these are modern types of phenomena, but four different phenomena. And the reason that we're categorizing them together is because, not because all of them are the same, but because they have some common threads. So we have abduction experiences and UFOs, all right? And then biblical phenomena, how does that all relate, okay? And ancient, spiritual, or interdimensional entities. So, and again, this is based on human accounts, okay? So we don't have everyday encounters. A lot of people, if they do, they don't recognize, or they don't have everyday encounters with these beings, okay? And so we're going to try to address these four areas because people tend to categorize them together. And it's important to recognize, though, that just because we're addressing it, we're not addressing blanketly every UFO situation. We're not addressing blanketly every abduction experience, because each one is its own thing. Each scenario, each phenomena is its own thing. But we're going to draw some common denominators, okay? You guys ready? All right. So what I'm going to do is, whoa, hold on there, pal. All right. What I'm going to do is I'm going to start off with UFOs and then go from there. Does that sound good? All right. So this part is really cool. I had no idea there was so many different things that could look like the classic flying saucer or UFO. So we're just going to go through some of them real quickly here, kind of categorically or by form, all right? And this is just fascinating more than anything, all right? So these are some examples of some flying sky cars from the 50s, okay? This is mid-century, and these are some sky cars. So these obviously look like a flying saucer, but these are just private craft, not even government, all right? Look at this. This is Muller International's flying disc, you see? And now they've got drones. People have drones that are very similar ideas to this, and they're like computer balanced and all this, or not even drones, but like a little craft you could sit in, okay? Cool stuff like that. Here's one that's a little bit upscale. It was sold to several militaries, and this is again from like the 50s or 60s. And then here's a private builder, okay, in Canada. And then here's a little jet car, a little mini jet car. If you saw that flying around, I would definitely think it's an alien spacecraft. Of course, that's not very common up here in the Methow Valley, probably, but then again, none of this is common. All right? Okay? So next, here's just some cool, I mean, look at those airplanes. I didn't even know they made airplanes like this. This is pretty awesome. So these are obviously U.S. military, that one is, and similar model to the right there. Similar aircraft here. Pretty cool, huh? That'd be sick to go racing in one of those. Look at this. Look at that one. It's a monoplane. The whole thing's a wing. I had no idea that existed. This is obviously from the early 1900s. Pretty cool. Just weird aircraft. Just fun. I'm not saying that's alien. Or I mean, that's all the UFO thing. I'm just fascinated by this stuff. Okay? Look, this one, Alexander Graham Bell. Do you guys know who Alexander Graham Bell is? Invented the kids. Any of you kids know what Alexander Graham Bell invented? He invented, one of the adults let us know. Alexander Graham Bell invented the telephone. And he also invented a giant kite, apparently. I just threw this in because it's cool. It's an aero car, okay? Actually, they are just making the first production aero car, flying car, just recently. It's Samson is making it. The company's called Samson. So that's pretty cool. Okay, so these are just kind of random weird things. Here, now we're getting into some like blimps, okay? So these are giant airships. Obviously, that's bigger than several trucks down there, okay? And this is a Russian airship, okay? This was something that was sighted over the Netherlands, and it's actually, you guys see what that is? It's actually a big old hot air balloon made to look like an amazing spaceship. All right, look at that. There's another weird experimental craft. If you live out in the desert, you're more likely to see this kind of stuff. This is a giant airship there. Pretty cool, huh? This is a hyper blimp. It's a long blimp, and then here's an example of a UFO sighting that could be explained by something like that, by a hyper blimp. Okay. You might not have seen one of these giant hot dogs up in the sky, but they actually are not powered by anything except for solar, for air. You just stick them out in the middle of the my dad's had one for his high school class before. Stick it out in the middle of the high school field, and it just heats up and rises up because it's black, and it just rises up into the air with the morning sun. Okay, this is just another experimental prototype craft. It's solar powered, actually. Kind of cool. All right, you've probably seen pictures of this. This is from the 90s. So you wouldn't see this flying around anymore, but you might see things like, well, not like that. That's from the 50s. But you might see, there we go. You might see B-2s. Those are sick. By the way, that's the most expensive airplane in the world. It costs $2 billion. So it looks like an alien spacecraft. These are stealth drones, and the government is developing them. They're meant to go at hypersonic speeds, and they're made to not be detected and all that kind of stuff. Just pretty cool stuff. Aircraft, all these things are flying around in the sky at all times, plus satellites. Satellites are, you're always seeing satellites. I don't know if you've seen Starlink. They're about to put up a bunch of new Starlink satellites, but they all go in a line. So it looks like a fleet of UFOs. Those were crazy the first time I saw those in the sky. Similarly, this one actually is some military flares. So these are a lot of, and somebody actually thought that was a UFO. And it's actually military flares, okay? Now these, anybody know what those are? Anybody have an idea? Want to take a stab at it? What? Chinese lanterns, flying kites. They're like entangled. You've seen the movie Tangled. They're in that. And in Thailand, I think this is in Thailand, they let up a bunch of them all at once in one night. And I actually, when I was a kid, I remember looking out one evening and I thought I'd seen an alien spaceship. And it turned out to be one of these, and it kept getting closer and closer and closer. And I ended up running and catching the alien spaceship. And it was a trash bag that somebody had put candles on. It's pretty cool. Starts fires, but it's pretty cool. So those are some more pictures of that. Pretty cool, huh? All right. So all of these are, if we're finding out more about these different phenomena here, then all of these are examples of human technology. So where UFOs, okay, we can connect the dots, like these are a lot of UFOs, a big percentage of UFOs can be easily explained by human technology. Okay? A lot of, and let's be clear about our terminology. I didn't make that clear at the beginning. UFO stands for unidentified flying object. And then another popular one now is UAP, unidentified aerial phenomena. Okay? So now we're going to get into some examples of other things. Actually, this would be in the. Does anybody know what this is? No, it's not. It looks like the Northern Lights. I actually, in my mind, I just threw it into this other category, but this is human caused right here. This would be. These are missile trails. So these are missile trails, and they don't appear as much as they used to in the 60s, of course. But we just got out of the arms deal with Russia, so we might start seeing them again. I don't know. All right, these are just lenticular clouds. Again, if somebody just sees things at a glimpse, far off, or, I mean, pretty obvious it's a cloud to me, but I suppose definitely if it was far off, you just see it quick as you're driving. Does anybody know what that is? What'd you say? No. They show up in Wenatchee a lot. For some reason, they're actually pretty rare nationally. This is a sundog. So the sun is actually over here. And this shows up, this is a sundog, and then there's one on the opposite side of the sun. It shows up often during like late afternoon around Wenatchee. And I don't know if it shows up here too, but it's something about the air up there. It just reflects, the sunlight reflects off of the air. Pretty weird. Okay, so these would be examples of natural causes, right? These are examples of natural causes for UFOs. So again, a lot of these are easily explained by natural phenomena. Even ancient, you have ancient reports of UFO type sightings, and several of them can be explained by like ball lightning, okay? So ball lightning would be like, it's where lightning fizzles in a ball and it can dance around and hover and then go upwards. And there's some like several instances where Roman historians described UFOs, and ball lightning would account for some of those, for example, okay? Now we're going to get into another category, and that is hoaxes, okay? So there's different examples of hoaxes, all right? And this is one from the 50s, okay, where a man supposedly made a flying saucer from Venus, whatever, right? And then these are some other faked images, all right? And then more recently, it's obviously deep fakes are becoming more of a thing, and they're going to become more of a thing with AI. So that's something that you wouldn't have heard in an alien talk 5 years ago even. But like these, it's easy to Photoshop something, but it's harder to Photoshop like a video or something like that. Or you can even easily, obviously AI fakes are getting way more realistic. So that's another example of just some fake images. By the way, with the AI thing, I was just listening to a news piece where they're talking about how some of the proposed legislation on AI is to make sure that the companies, that AIs use watermarks, some sort of a digital watermark, so that you can tell if that's an AI image, right? But obviously not all AIs are going to use the watermark, right, if they're not up and up. Another fake alien spaceship that's just a balloon. Here's one that was sighted and followed by fighter jets, and it turned out to be a deflating balloon like that was made to look like a spacecraft there. Somebody got really creative there. I like that. Okay, so there's hoaxes. There's lots of things, right? Lots of different. Are you guys following this? All right. So then there's some examples of unidentified aerial phenomena that are, we're not quite sure what they are. They don't really necessarily fall into a lot of these other categories. So this one, it could be a cannonball, but it was flying like in a very straight trajectory across the desert. This one recently from, I think, 2017, maybe 2019, I forget. This one, it turned out to be a commercial jet. At least that's what the official consensus is. And it's seen at a weird angle. And then you guys have probably seen, you guys have heard of the Pentagon videos. If you're at this talk, you've heard of the Pentagon videos. This is from a shot from the gimbal video in 2015. Okay, so the Pentagon videos, they're long, but the next clip here is let's see here. There we go. So this is a clip from the video, all right? This is the FLIR video. Excuse me, the gimbal video. And then here you'll notice at the end it turns, the craft turns. So they're being followed by F-18s. The craft is being followed by F-18s. And these are the Pentagon UFO videos that were released recently were taken by some Navy pilots. And the ships, the carriers, were being followed by some spacecraft, by some unidentified craft. Let's be honest. And here's another example. This example is from actually 2004, but it's a very famous one because is it playing on the screen there? Aha, there we go. So Commander David Fravor was one of the ones who made this story famous. And this is the FLIR video. And this particular incident, there was this craft that was following around the carrier, right? And then it would be up at like 60,000 feet. No, like, 80,000 feet, and then it dropped like 60,000 feet in a matter of seconds, and then stopped and hovered above the water, and then zipped off, and just doing maneuvers that defy our modern understanding of physics, defy our understanding of physical possibilities. The craft would have been destroyed through movements like that, and it couldn't even have made those kind of movements because there's no way to stop it without it staying together, right? So, and then it was also additionally, it was traveling in a straight line, and then it would make instant corner turns. And these kind of movements have been observed in UFOs throughout several decades of military observation. And so these would fall into a category where we're not sure what they are, okay? So somebody who's giving an interview, this is actually my dad, heard this interview, and you can look all this stuff up, but a spokesperson for the Pentagon said that some of the UAP seen and filmed by Navy pilots and other staff made maneuvers that are impossible according to our modern understanding of physics. He said, if they are real, they must be extra-dimensional beings, okay? So for the first time, we have an example of somebody referencing how these crafts, they're dematerializing, they're defying normal physical motion, and then he's drawing a connection. You have like a credible, as if the government's credible, but you have a public official just straight out saying that they're interdimensional beings, okay? So you have another tag on them. Maybe they're extraterrestrial and they're not interdimensional. You know, maybe they're interdimensional and they are also extraterrestrial. Maybe they're only interdimensional, you know? So there's different, we can't just say, oh, either or, but let's continue, all right? So these are things that exhibit, basically, it doesn't make sense that they should be able to move like that, right? And so our next thought is, I want to connect it to the abduction experiences, and I'm going to start out by doing that by drawing a connection about some similarities between the two. Obviously, this would be closer encounters with entities that claim to be from other solar systems, other planets, right? Okay, and I'm calling it abduction experiences, but not all of them are like abduction, like they get taken up into a spacecraft. Some of it's they're just like you made contact somehow, okay? But some common threads are that it's all types of people. It's young people, old people, lots of different types of demographics of people. There doesn't seem to be many boundaries on that, okay? So it's not like it's just crazy people that are experiencing it, or it's just people in the city or rural people, okay? And that would, because it's so many different types of people, you start to think, okay, well maybe, it's not just something wrong with, my uncle and all his friends, right? And so there's also little material evidence with a lot of abduction experiences. So the experience that somebody has an encounter with this alien being or this entity, right, will be related to a UFO sighting, but then not much will be, if anything, will be left behind, okay? Sometimes there's a little bit, sometimes like there's a burnt circle on the ground or something like that. Sometimes there's like a little, there might be like pock marks or something in somebody's skin, but it's not like nobody's ever stolen a spoon from the spaceship. Nobody's ever like, you don't come away with a souvenir, okay? So there's little material evidence of it, even though it's connected often to a UFO somehow in the story, or to an alien spacecraft, right? In the scenario, okay? In the story of what happens. So a lot of it has to do with a subconscious state, and that's interesting. And it started out with, popularly, the phenomena of alien abductions in modern times started out with these guys. This is Barney Hill. You've probably heard of him. And he was abducted in 1961, or he had an experience where he believed he was taken onto an alien spacecraft, and there was like all this missing time. So he didn't know what happened. He was gone for a long time, and he didn't know what happened during that time. Okay? Then you have, like I brought up, no souvenirs. And related to the subconscious state is the fact that a lot of the abduction experiences, it's spiritual in nature. So they might receive some enlightenment or feel like they've got some spiritual enlightenment. About 50% of them believe they've received some healing of some kind. So you might have some healing, you might have some spiritual enlightenment, you might have some other positive spiritual effect from this experience, okay? Or you feel like you've been given a message to tell. Now, the messages wouldn't be like, you don't hear the alien beings giving Bible verses. It would be more like messages like, hey, we need to stop all the nuclear production because we're smashing other universes. You know, each atom is a universe and we're smashing those universes. Or a lot of stuff to do with nature and, hey, we got to conserve the planet. Hey, you've been given this message. Okay, so these are the kind of messages. Or, hey, we need to evolve. Another big one is, hey, humans need to evolve together to like a higher state of consciousness. And basically, like, look within yourself and evolve to this higher state of consciousness. And we're giving you this message. Okay, so these might be a lot of the messages that they would give out. But then the ironic component is that a lot of the abduction experiences are overwhelmingly negative or even evil. They'll have like an evil sexual component or evil, like fearful, super fearful component. Super fearful. And not like, oh my gosh, this thing could, not like in the Bible when you hear stories of like where somebody's afraid of an angel and the angel says, don't fear. But it's like the alien being is just like enjoying tormenting you in your abduction experience. And there's a lot of experiences like this. So a lot of the experiences start when people are younger and they continue having these experiences when they're older, all right? And so it's not like it's all roses. So there's something, it sheds doubt on the whole positive spiritual aspect of it, because there's so often this negative spiritual aspect, right? Okay? And then again, even the positive messages, we believe in the Bible. And if you do believe in the Bible, I believe in the Bible. If you do believe in the Bible, then the messages, even the positive messages don't line up with what the Bible says. They're very like look inward rather than look to God for your healing, for your salvation, for answers. okay? And there, or look outside, look to the stars, like look to these. So you'll have people who are repeatedly like channeling these beings through like what's it called? Astral projecting, where you get into a meditative state and then you supposedly go off to this other planet, right? Stuff like that. So this guy, Joseph Jordan, I actually interviewed him a few years ago. I did an interview with him, and he's living in South Korea right now. And he was in the 90s, he was a regional director of the Mutual UFO Network, which is an organization that researches UFOs. And his story was so fascinating that I was like, I gotta talk to this guy personally. So what happened to him is he was researching all these abduction experiences of aliens, and then he heard about this. So he had never heard of someone being able to stop an abduction experience, because it was this overwhelming sense of when the aliens come and attack you, or when the aliens come and they want to abduct you, right? You have no power over the situation. But then he heard a story of a testimony of a man who was able to stop the abduction by saying, "In the name of Jesus, stop." And he called out the name of Jesus. He said, he called out Jesus, Jesus. And he was able to stop the abduction experience completely. And it was so powerful. So Joe this was the first time he had heard of this, and so he did a lot of research. And he's into this guy's situation. He's like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. And so then he actually, he wrote an article about it, and then a bunch of people started following up with his article, saying from all over the country, and saying that the same thing had happened to them, where they had this experience where they felt like they were stopped by taken by the aliens or something like that, and they had been they were able to stop the experience through the name of Jesus. I actually had an experience where one morning I was lying in my bed, and I had just been researching some of this phenomena, and I didn't have an experience with aliens, but I had an experience where I was just lying in my bed, and it was like right near the morning, right? And it was just about time to wake up. And then all of a sudden I tried to wake up, but I couldn't. And I couldn't even open my eyes, and I couldn't and then I felt like the devil was, I felt like, not the devil, he's got bigger things to do. But I felt like there's these dark, spiritual forces holding me down. And I all of a sudden just started to feel very afraid, just very afraid. And I was like, I can't get out of this. I'm going to be trapped in this forever. And I remembered in my mind about calling out the name of Jesus. And then all of a sudden, I just called out, I said, Jesus, Jesus. And I could feel myself being able to say Jesus, and then it stopped. And so it was, and so I think that's cool because now I can share that with others, right? I can share that story with others. So if you guys have had experiences like this with some sort of dark force or a fear, you can call out to Jesus and he will help you. And it's not just the name of Jesus like a wand, but call out to Jesus and he will help you. And I mean, I can say it personally, like it brought comfort to my soul. And I just knew that he was with me in that moment, and it stopped the experience from going further. And because sometimes these experiences will last for a long time, right? And I feel like because I had never had an experience like that. So it's not like I experienced sleep paralysis a lot. But right when I was researching this stuff, I had that experience. And it wasn't even to do with aliens, but that shed some light for me on the rest of the story. And so here we have these negative events, and they're being frequently stopped by invoking Jesus, by calling on Jesus, right? And so all of a sudden Joe saw that, oh man, there's this hope here. And so he became a Christian through that event, not because he was trying to prove the Bible or because people were talking to him. He became a Christian because he heard this story, right? So again, people need to hear your stories. Okay, so through this we can see that this whole thing it's related, the abduction experiences, and if they're stopped by invoking Jesus, that means it's part of a conflict, right? It's not just like, there's two sides to it, right? Or there's at least somebody who will be a cop and stand up for you, at very least, right? But we can connect that to these ancient spiritual like encounters, these stories about these ancient spiritual entities, biblical phenomena, and these interdimensional ideas, right? And it even makes sense with connecting the spiritual aspect, why abduction experiences, it makes sense why they're so spiritual if they're connected to this, if they're connected interdimensionally, right? Rather than just like, oh, they're from Mars, right? Okay, does that make sense? Obviously, well, people used to say they're from Mars, and that's actually another big thing. So the stories, this is another big thing here that I want you guys to understand about this phenomena. And how much time do I have, by the way? I've got like 8 minutes. Okay, so it's constantly changing. The stories that they have are constantly changing, right? So you'll have airships, people seeing airships in the 1890s. You have flying saucers, boom, right around the late 40s. Flying saucers show up, and then things start to shift, and then they're like egg-shaped or round or spherical, right? And it's along with popular culture or popular perception, right? The appearance of them changed. The supposed place of origin changed. I thought that was really interesting. It changes, like they used to be from Mars. They used to say they're from Mars or Saturn or Jupiter or something, and then it got farther out, and then it's like everywhere now. There's still some like Zeta Reticuli. There's some big ones, right, that these beings say, but it doesn't make sense that these experiences, which are being experienced by all types of people, not just loonies, these experiences are supposedly from all these randomly changing technologies and entities and origins and locations. It doesn't, that part really to me does not make sense. So that's where I connect this and I start to see, okay, there's something central, there's a central idea to all of this, and I believe that is that they're all deceptive, or I say all, there's a thread of deception through a lot of these phenomena, through a lot of the abduction experiences, UFOs, all right? There's a thread of a lot of them are very deceptive in their nature. And it has a lot to do with how it's constantly changed, even in history. You have different, a lot of different cultures had kind of their own thing that they would be afraid of, these like, that would come to them in these like sleep paralysis type experiences where they're in that lower conscious state where you're in less control, right? And in one culture it's like these like leprechaun type things. In one culture it's like aliens. In one culture it's like aliens from Mars. In one culture a little bit later it's more aliens from other places. It's like there's different ways that it you could say manifests, that it shows up, that different messages, okay? And again, it's all types of people, so that takes away a lot of the whole, it's just people who are on the edge, right? So the point in a lot of that is that these interdimensional beings are not a new idea, okay? And when you guys are talking to your friends about this, I don't encourage you to just come out or to just start out by saying, oh, like the aliens are all demons. Because what that does is that wording it's loaded with tons of baggage. And you're not going to communicate effectively to somebody who believes in this, right? And it's that word, while it's true, you need more context, I think, if you're going to communicate effectively to someone, right? And so there's other terms that we can use, that I like to use, like Lucifer, or these, again, it's all interdimensional beings. Oh, gosh. Okay? But in the Bible, we call them demons, and the Bible talks again and again about their mission being to deceive people, to lead them away from God, right? Okay. Even like super quick here, I don't have time for this, but you will have time afterwards to look at these things. So these are the Nazca lines, okay? This is another ancient culture, an ancient pagan culture, right, that worshipped some of these darker spiritual entities, right, and made sacrifices to them. Supposedly, this culture, people say, hey, a lot of these lines had to have been appreciated from space, and so they must have been made by aliens, right? You can't appreciate them except from up high. So, and then here's this it's been dubbed the astronaut, right? And it's one of the paintings, or the not paintings, but the lines in Peru. These are the Nazca lines in Peru, right? But interestingly, they had this fabric that it was a black fabric, and they could have actually created a balloon similar to this long solar balloon here. Same idea. It would just heat up in the sun, and it was a super lightweight fabric. And so they had fabric like that. Some people made a replica or a model of what the balloon might have looked like. So it might have been created from, just up in the air like that, okay? And then as far as the depictions of astronauts, a lot of them, there's similar drawings all over the world, and a lot of it, honestly, is just stylized people. Because you'll look, and this is how the people are dressed up. It's not, so they're on the rock, they're drawing people, and this is their ceremonial makeup, right? And so people who don't really know what they're talking about will say, hey, it's like spacemen. See, they've got like goggles on or whatever. Or they've got big eyes like aliens, right? But it's just, you'll see similar artwork all over the world, and it's just people, right? And then so like people talk about supposedly like, oh, that's an astronaut mask, but it's, again, a lot of this stuff in ancient artwork that's supposedly aliens, it's just elaborate drawings. Here's another one. Some people, Von Däniken talks about it being, oh, this is evidence of he's driving a spaceship. He's actually getting sacrificed to a god. So, yeah, these are typical sacrifice positions. And then, like here, supposedly an aircraft. I mean, it might be an aircraft. It might be. It absolutely could be. But it could also be a pheasant, just showing other possibilities, right? Okay. Then there's I don't have time to get into this stuff about the Sumerian tablets and stuff, but maybe my dad will get into it in the second part. I'm not sure. But basically, some people say that the Sumerian tablets have been, or not tablets, but Sumerian writings indicate that there's all these stories of astronauts visiting us and extraterrestrials from all these other planets. But a lot of this is just, in fact, all of it made popular by Zecharia Sitchin. It's all bad translation, like it's completely bogus. It's completely made up. And then, so like, here's an example of the astronaut toy you might see. It actually doesn't include the head, so that's drawing is embellished. Very interesting. It might be. But also, it was made by Zecharia Sitchin, or it was found by him, supposedly. So he got super lucky, because he's all about this stuff, right? Or else he faked it. So it's questionable at best. All right. We haven't found anything in years, 30 years of researching, trying to find signs in the sky. We haven't found any telecommunication, and that's a big red flag if we can't even get that. God made the stars on day 4, and he might have made extraterrestrial life. We don't know. There's nothing that says that he couldn't have or that he didn't, all right? But our focus, through the Bible, we learn that God is our focus, is our best focus. And not only that, but his focus is on us, and that's crazy. And we see his love in that. And yes, so he might have created a bunch of alien civilizations and then brings them all together at the end of history. Could be. We don't know. But there's certainly nothing to indicate that happened, right? And all the stuff about the extraterrestrial origin stories for all these phenomena like abductions and UFOs, it's very shaky and very there's a strong nature of deception. And then these experiences are being called off by the name of Jesus. So by people appealing to Jesus. And that says a lot about the origins right there. So that's the end of what I have to say. And I probably went way too long, but it's very interesting. And you guys can ask questions. My dad actually has some Operation Blue Book, real Operation Blue Book copies right there from the secret government projects. There's some tablets from ancient Babylon and lots of other interesting things. So, thanks a lot.